Podcasting, the final frontier. These are the episodes of a Catch as Catch Can podcast. Its continuing mission to explore strange, nerdy topics, to chat about sports, movies, TV, sci-fi, and so much more. To boldly pod where this nerd has gone before.
Captain's Log. Well, I guess I just can't say Captain's Log anymore anyway, since I have co-hosts on this podcast. So, hey, greetings and felicitations, everybody. Yeah, that's better. Anyways, welcome to Boldly Pod, the podcast that discusses all things nerdy. That's right, and we tend to nerd out a little bit on this podcast. And this one is going to be no different. A couple of podcasts ago, you may remember I was joined by my friend Erin as we discuss Mystery Science Theater 3000. And I had mentioned wanting to talk about the new show Picard, and she immediately responded, yes, I am all in on that. And we did indeed have a fantastic conversation. It was so great that we had to split it up into two different podcasts. So you're about to hear part number 1 of Erin and I's fantastic conversation about the new show from CBS All Access called Star Trek Picard. So Erin is going to join me for this episode of To Boldly Pod. You may remember her from a couple of podcasts ago when we discussed Mystery Science Theater, but her nerdiness does not stop at MST3K. No, it does not. We are going to discuss the series that just concluded on CBS All Access, Star Trek Picard. So, Erin, how you doing?
Really good, and thank you for having me on again.
Well, you're kind of stuck as a co-host now, so I'm going to lean on you whenever I can.
Oh, boy. Okay.
And I don't know if your husband shared or not, but him and I kind of hashed a little idea for something for him and I to do next, too. Did he tell you?
He did. That should be exciting. No spoilers.
Well, I'll give a spoiler. I don't care. It's our podcast. Since we can't talk about sports, we're going to do a podcast about the sports video games that we loved to play when we were young.
Should be a good time.
Let's hope. Now, we're going to talk about Picard, so I'm going to start with a couple of questions that I didn't even tell you I was going to ask because I want a sort of off-the-cuff answer from you. One...
Okay.
You mentioned you watched The Next Generation, so yeah. How did you like how that series ended?
I liked how that ended, and I should preface this by saying that when I watched The Next Generation, I was in high school. I probably watched the whole series maybe a total of twice. That being said, like all the way through, beginning to end, and not even really in order necessarily, and then certain episodes a lot more than others. So it's really not, I don't have like a catalog of information of the series. I have more of a like a nostalgic remembrance of it, kind of like, so bits and pieces really stick out more than other things. But I did recently rewatch the last episode, and I did really enjoy how it kind of bookended the series. That being said, I know that there are a lot of flaws in the series because I have the nostalgia cloud of, oh, it was such a great series, and then going back and watching certain episodes, later, it's like, oh, okay, like it's definitely not without its flaws. We'll say that, but
Yeah, well, it's much
I did.
like any series. It doesn't really hold up the time a lot. So my other surprise question: did you watch the movie Star Trek Nemesis, which was the last Next Generation movie?
I actually had not seen that.
Okay, well then I'll skip that question. I was going to ask how you like that.
I know vaguely what happens. Is that the one where I know that's the one where spoiler alert, Data dies, correct?
Yes.
Spoilers, everyone. And then it was kind of, I've heard it likened to kind of like a Picard and Data like buddy cop movie. Is that like an apt description or?
Well, it just led me into wondering what you thought when you heard that they were going to make Star Trek Picard.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't really have any like real tie-in with the Nemesis movie in particular. It was just like more of my favorite captain. Oh, captain, my captain. I'm here for it. Let's do it, kind of thing.
And did you already have CBS All Access, or did you get it specifically for Picard?
We acquired it specifically to watch the show. Yes, we did.
Yeah, me too, because I tried to watch Discovery, and I just haven't been able to get into it yet, but maybe I'll try again. But it is what it is.
It's been on my list, and it just keeps getting pushed back on the burner because so many other things.
So tell me your initial thoughts as a whole of the season of Picard.
On the whole, I would say I really enjoyed it. If we're talking like a star rating or whatever, I'd be maybe like 7.5 out of 10. Maybe something like that. I did enjoy it. It was entertaining. How about you?
Well, that's funny that you say 7.5 out of 10 because IMDb is 7.7 out of 10.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So spot on there.
Right on the average. Way to be average.
The first time I watched it, I liked it, and I think Kate is the only person that I've told this to, but when I first watched it, I enjoyed it as a sci-fi series, but I had made the sort of controversial statement that it's a good show, but it doesn't really need Picard in it. And it wasn't until the second time that I watched it that I really grasped and understood the nuances of why he was in there and the whole point of the whole story.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of hard. I mean, to be honest, it was kind of hard to see Picard like knock down so many pegs when you're so used to him being like this, great commanding man and like just super competent captain and stuff. And now he's just kind of like, he's just kind of getting ready to die. And it's like, oh gosh, like how are we going to turn this ship around so this show can be enjoyable? But, yeah, I mean, that's kind of, he finds his purpose, and then it kind of, escalates, and you're able to see him get built back up to the Picard we know, a little bit more. So, yeah, no, I agree. It's kind of hard to see some of the old Picard in there if you're looking for it right away in the series, because you have to kind of get to that point. But I agree.
I mean, it took 2 watches, and that's something, and this is a failing of mine. If something doesn't draw me in right away, I tend to walk away from it. And I think the only reason I kept watching and learned to appreciate it was because of the name Star Trek in it.
Yeah, right.
But maybe that's just me. I don't know. So what did you think of the... Go ahead.
I was going to say, no, I think there's so much entertainment out there now. If something doesn't grab you the first time, it's hard to just buckle down and spend the time and say, yeah, I'm going to finish this. When there's so many other, like, carrots dangling out there, like, no, you should watch this, instead. And so...
So before we get into the whole story of it, what did you think of the cast that they had around Picard in it?
A few of them are pretty meh, to be honest. Like, I've been like, well, they're fine. But a couple of the standouts for me was I really enjoyed the character of Agnes, the roboticist, and a lot of that is due to Alison Till's performance. I thought it was phenomenal.
Right.
She's also just the character, so like, hey, she's in the beginning, it's like, oh, she's kind of quirky and likable and smart, and oh, she's fun, and then you're like, holy crap, she's capable of some things, and then the whole it all just kind of, she does some things. This is spoilers, right? She murders her fiance or significant other / what's the word? I'm losing words, Dan. Colleague, there it is.
Right.
Colleague, and you're like, oh, okay, and then that all just kind of like, okay, she's a murderer, and then it all just kind of, well, no one really cares. You're kind of like, that's a little weird, but okay. And that's kind of one of my gripes about it, was it's kind of like, how much that kind of fell by the way. And I understand that there's a lot of other things going on in the series, but everyone just seemed to get over that like really quickly. And I'm like, okay. And I understand the reasoning behind, and she was kind of overtaken by, these visions that were placed in her and all this stuff. But I just thought that was kind of weird. But overall, her performance was amazing, and I really enjoyed watching what that character did and how she progressed. Other than that, like, I think Raffi is kind of meh. Like, she's a fine character, but I wasn't really interested in her full side story with her son much or anything. And like Captain Rios, he was kind of, he's the thing with Rios. I liked him as a character himself, but I didn't enjoy necessarily all his different holograms. I thought that was a little much time. Like maybe one or two could have been okay, but there was like a whole 20 minutes like trying to be improv or something with them all in a room talking to each other. I'm like, this is a little much. But those are kind of like, I definitely liked Agnes. I'm not, I'm a little hot and cold on the whole,
Soji?
Narek, which is funny, the Narek and Narissa,
the brother sister?
The what?
The brother sister connection?
Yeah, and they're not the crew. I'm just kind of going through my notes here, but they were like, what's up with them? But, yeah, but I am interested, and I don't know if you want to tackle this now or later, because I wasn't not a huge Star Trek watcher. I wanted to get your take on, like, were you excited when 7 of 9 showed up?
I was actually going to ask you about the guest appearances, but we can talk about that now. That was something I was excited about because, unlike most Trekkies, I actually really, really, really loved Voyager. So I was excited to see Jerry Ryan reprise the role and sort of give it a little bit of closure, sort of, that they missed during Voyager. So that was great for me.
Cool. I was just like, hey, I know this character just from being in the general Star Wars lore type of universe for a while. I'm like, oh, I know this character, and a lot of people really like this character. And I'm like, she's on cool. But other than that, and that she had been assimilated, and since not, that's all I really knew.
Well, I didn't. If they did it, I forgot it or what, but I didn't really put together her relationship with Hugh, even though they're two separate series, how they brought them together, and that was, I guess, sort of cool since they were both assimilated by the Borg.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm having a mental block on the character that she considered her son. I'll think of it here in a second. I should have wrote it down, and I totally forgot. What was it? Icheb or whatever that she considered her son, that the reason why she was...
the one that was on the artifact, and she had to essentially mercy kill.
Right. And then he was a 1 or 2 episode character on Voyager, so that was kind of good to see the closure there for 7 of 9.
Yeah.
Now, what did you think about, say, Riker and Troy being on it?
That was pretty fun, I should say. I enjoyed seeing kind of how they ended up. I mean, the visual of, Riker, like, cooking pizza in, like, the fire with the brick oven. It's like, okay, I knew he was kind of like a quote-unquote, booty or whatever from a couple episodes of The Next Generation, but I'm like, that's interesting. And I hear a lot of people that thought their daughter, Kestra, and the actress who played her really kind of stole the whole episode. Like, they really enjoyed her.
Yeah, I was curious about that, too.
Mm-hmm.
If that was something they had to add for that episode, or if that was the plan all along, I don't know.
Yep, me either. And then to learn that they also had another son that died was sad. And then it's kind of like, does all this have a purpose? Or is it just something here's something that happened?
No, here's a thought that I actually had, because did they ever say how old the daughter was supposed to be?
I don't believe so.
Because, I mean, if you just go on real terms, I mean, Riker and Troy were both older, which I'm not sure their actual age. I'm assuming that Jonathan Frakes has to be in his 60s.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure without looking it up, but it just that kind of made me like, aren't they kind of old to have a kid? But yeah, I don't know. It's the 24th century. Who knows?
It is, and they put their Starfleet career first and family later.
Exactly.
It happens. Modern thought.
Were there any surprises in the series that you kind of like, whoa, wow?
Surprises. Let me think. I don't know about surprises necessarily. I mean, because I didn't really go in expecting much, so I wasn't, there wasn't really many surprises. I guess I was a little bit surprised by because I was assuming that they were making this as more of a standalone series. So I was kind of surprised that they had so many different factions of just like that people. I mean, even I was getting lost at times. In the first half, it was like we have Tal Shiar, we have Zat Vash, we have the other Romulan warrior nuns, and all these other things coming into play, and it was like, okay, and you have to know something about the board too as well. And it's like, okay, there's a lot of stuff to keep track of here, but so I guess that was even kind of. It's not a real surprise, but I was kind of shocked by the amount of stuff they were expecting people to keep up with. If they were just like, well, I've heard good things about Star Trek, and I kind of know Picard, I'll watch the show. It was very easy to get overwhelmed by some of it. So.
That was one thing that sort of surprised me, was you mentioned the whole Romulan nun thing. Mm-hmm. And I know they always sort of more specifically in Next Generation, really built up the Romulan mystique. So it was sort of, you seen what was on the cover, but you didn't see the society underneath of it. So I kind of like that, but in a way I'm like, you're just kind of throwing this at us without explaining the whole concept of it.
Right. I mean, there was just that little preface of, maybe it was in one of the earlier episodes when Picard's, whatever they were, housekeepers were, his Romulan posse there at the chateau were like, hey, here's 5 minutes about the Tel Shiar, was it Tel Shiar? I can't even remember. It was the Zavesh. Yeah, I'm getting them mixed up. They're like, hey, here's what they're about. You're just like, holy crap, I'm still like getting used to the show, and they're showing all this at me like I'm supposed to remember this all. Supposed to bank this all for later. I'm like, okay, well, we'll see what happens.
That was one.
I for one was a better. I was pushing my microphone. I was a better nerd when I actually had some memory, but now I'm getting older and I can't remember like the minutia of every little thing that I watch or read or see. It's harder. It's harder. You have to have a good memory to be a nerd.
Well, just remember, as old as you possibly get, you're always going to be younger than I am, so I expect more. But I totally get what you're saying, because I remember posting this on Facebook, I think, after like the first episode or two. I'm like, okay, is something going to happen here? Because they just, like you said, they kept throwing so much at you dialogue-wise, and nothing was really happening except for the very first scene when the first android gets killed.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. I mean, yeah. It seems like maybe they could have put it together just a little bit more coherently. I mean, I was, in the beginning, you're still just watching it and getting used to it, and I was just enjoying, like, the scenery and getting used to the, character, like the, okay, here's the housekeepers, and here's the Picard and these other, and it's like, number one, the dog. I'm like, oh, he's cute, what's happening? And then it gets real serious real fast. I'm like, oh, okay, go. Pay attention. And then, it seems like maybe they could have, like, spread it out or something a little more, or, I don't know. But
well, I'm going to destroy her name, but what did you think of Isa Bronies or whatever? The girl that played Soji, did you like that character and her portrayal?
I mean, I like the character. I mean, I guess it was kind of odd for me to have, they started her out, as Daj, and then, Daj is gone. Like, okay, so now she's Soji, and it's like, okay, well, I get that they're like, sister androids or whatever, but, I kind of thought that I don't know, she could have brought a little more. I mean, she was fine. She was passable. She was, she got the job done, I guess. But, I mean, as far as, like, her portrayal, it didn't really move me in a fashion. She was just kind of there to, progress the story, and I wasn't super stoked to, on the flip side, when Agnes was on, I was like, yes, screen time for Agnes. I wasn't really that way with she's fine. She's good.
Well,
I couldn't have done any better.
Let's jump to the end before we go backwards, I suppose. How did you like the, spoiler alert, fact that he died and he was instilled into an android body?
Well, I saw it coming, to be honest. It wasn't, I'm like, oh, they were prepping this other, whatever, like, oh yeah, we got this thing all set to go. And you knew that they weren't just gonna kill, I guess I kind of figured they weren't gonna go and kill Picard, like, straight away. I'm like, I bet she's going to go into this other little, prepped kind of body they had going on. But I do agree with Picard. It's like, you couldn't have given me like another maybe 10, 20 years, because you're like, oh yeah, you'll just die. You're whatever. You'll just die when you were going to die anyway. I mean, what if that's like in 2 weeks?
What did they say? It was 92 or whatever at the end?
I think 94. He's supposed to be 94.
So he looked.
So it's like, okay. Looks good. Looks good.
Do you think that was something they added after the fact when they decided they were going to do a second season? Do you think maybe like, well, hurry up and shuffle something together?
Maybe that was kind of their out. Like, well, we'll have things end here, and then when we get the word, we can either shovel them into this, a body, or we'll just have them die. I guess, I don't know. I haven't read anything or heard anything indicate if that was part of their decision making on that, but I did kind of see it coming, and I was happy that's what they did, because clearly Picard is still alive, and he's one of my favorite, Star Trek characters. So,
well, it made me think of the movie Generations when Kirk died. It was sort of this is how I took it, maybe I'm totally wrong, it was sort of William Shatner passing the torch to Patrick Stewart, saying, okay, Kirk's done, Star Trek is yours now. And it just made me think of that, and I don't know why.
Well, when a captain dies, I guess that's your kind of on to the next. The ship is yours now, like to the next person. But I'm glad that Picard is not quite yet done.
Do you think it maybe, whenever the second season happens with quarantine, who knows, but do you think they have a lot to live up to coming off that season?
I don't know if they have a lot to live up to, but they better have a really good storyline to follow it up. Because, I mean, and I know that they're, the whole war, I should say, maybe they won this battle, but the whole war is, I hope they have a good storyline to continue this saga. Because on, like, cast alone, it might not, make it a must-watch. Especially if they're keeping 7 of 9 on crew, which it looks like they might be fixing to do. That could be cool. Oh, which also, relationship status, 7 of 9 and Raffi.
Yeah, I noticed that, and I was going to ask you about little, subtle things that they sort of quickly showed or did or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I have no issue with any of that. It's just always, I'm this, I don't want to say macho stud or whatever. It's like, I don't need romance in my science fiction, damn it. It's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, well, I get that. That's a valid opinion. It's kind of like, sometimes it's added needlessly, and it might not even go anywhere, but it might get more people tuning in if they're really invested in those characters to be like, oh, what happens here, So we'll see.
Being the Voyager dork, I want the closure, because at the end of Voyager, 7 of 9 and Chakotay were together. And so we have to find out what happened there.
Yeah, so maybe that will unravel for you.
Yeah, maybe.
In the next.
The other minor thing I wanted to ask you about, and this is just me being a Star Trek nerd, what did you think of some of the modern, meaning now, language that they used in the episode, like the profanity and whatnot?
It really kind of took me aback at first. I'm like, oh, okay, we're talking like this now? talking like sailors now a little bit, Star Trek, but I mean, it was fine, you know. It doesn't bother me, but it was a little shocking to see in the pretext of Star Trek.
Yeah,
not really used to the more coarse language.
It
wasn't overdone.
No, it wasn't. It didn't bother me. I just was like, whoa, hey, did they just say the F word?
Yeah, what?
And it was like a 70-year-old admiral that said it too. It was like, whoa, hey.
Whoa, take it easy. No, yeah, no, I mean, it kind of injects, I think it injects a little more humanity into, as long as they don't overdo it or make it like really vulgar. I mean, it injects a little bit of humanity into someone that might just, you're like, oh, here's this person talking, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, oh, they have feelings. They have strong feelings. You better listen to what's going on, type of thing.
Yeah, it's not like a Quentin Tarantino Trek movie where you're getting F-bombs every other word.
Yeah. But, speaking of dialogue, I mean, a lot of this, I don't know, I don't think it was, like, super strong dialogue-wise, but, I mean, there was a lot of, like, just kind of maybe one line or so that would hit me. I was like, oh, that's, you know, really, you know, it hits me or whatever, like, when, in the beginning, and this is part, Patrick Stewart's acting as well, and they were in like one of the first episodes, and they were talking about how Picard left Starfleet, and it was no longer Starfleet, and he stumbled on these words, and they asked him again, what was that? And they said that, you know, it was no longer Starfleet, and it was just like you could see all this emotion in him and how distraught he was that Starfleet, you know, was not backing him in his decisions and holding up to their end of the deal that they're supposed to be, you know, like, saving life and stuff, and they were just kind of, you know, ignoring the death that was going on. Anyway, that was one line where right away I was like, oh, Picard, you know, it was no longer Starfleet. That was a good line, I thought.
And that's going to wrap up part number 1 of our discussion of Star Trek Picard. Worry not, Erin will be back next week when we bring you part 2 of our conversation. If you have any thoughts about the TV show Picard, or just want to say how awesome Erin is, let us know on Facebook or Twitter at TooBoldlyPod. I will leave you with this.
Resistance is futile. WLLP, Spock Rock Radio.